Hello and welcome to the Burrow, where we talk about the latest and greatest movies. And today I'm joined by
AJ Mater.
I'm Caleb Platt.
I'm your host, Nicholas Marrone, and AJ, you chose a movie this time, so why don't you tell us what movie it is and why you picked it?
It was Pirates of the Caribbean, and I picked it because it's a classic. I haven't seen it in a while, and Caleb saw it like a week ago, and he brought it up, and I was like, we should watch that. So
Yeah, and then we've also been playing Sea of Thieves, that pirate game, and so Pirates on the mind currently. And so I just watched it this morning, and you guys watched it again last night.
I rewatched it this morning because I was like,
yeah.
As well. I kind of thought it was interesting how the movie, like, I feel like it's just got so many iconic parts that I didn't realize because like it's chock full of like iconic moments. Everybody knows, like everybody knows Captain Jack Sparrow and like all the characters. It's just I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting that. And also, I didn't realize how old it was, 2001 or whatever. Like, that was...
It's been out for a while.
I know. I was like, I thought I grew up with this movie, but I guess that was...
Well, I mean, the newer ones came out...
Yeah,
but... The latest one came out like 2 years ago, so it's like, we still kind of grew up with them. But
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, on the topic of, like, things being famous, Captain Jack Sparrow is, like, one of the most famous movie characters of all time. And it's so obvious why after watching this movie. It's a good movie. The characters are cool, but Jack Sparrow is, like...
He's, like, the guy.
Yeah, he's, like, the crown.
And on top of that, I think that obviously the character's great, but without Johnny Depp playing Jack Sparrow, I don't know if it would have been as great as it is today. And one of the main things I think of when I think of Captain Jack Sparrow and his personality is his first entrance. He rides in on his little tiny sloop, he crashes into the dock, and it sinks.
Slowly sinks, yeah.
And then this dude comes up and he's like, hey, you have to pay to park here. And then Captain Jack pays him like triple the price to park there. He's like, oh, thank you, have a nice day. And then he steals like his entire pouch of money.
Yeah.
But then right after that, Elizabeth Swann falls into the sea, and basically he goes and saves her from drowning. So it's like it shows like both of his like comedic and more like morally weird side, and then like showing him saving Elizabeth was showing his nice side.
Yeah, and I think that the juxtaposition of those two scenes, because they make that a huge deal that like he's a pirate, but he still is a good person, and then they bring that theme up a lot. And so when they bring up like that Will and his dad was a pirate, and so Jack's like, but he was a pirate, but he was still a good man, and that's all that stuff. So that's a common theme that even the people who do the worst things can still be good people.
Yeah.
And I think Jack Sparrow encompasses both sides of that very perfectly because he's not a good person, obviously. He does awful stuff. But he's also the best character in the movie, and so you can't be that if you're a terrible person. So there needs to be some sort of shining within all that like griminess that is like being a pirate.
Yes.
And I think then they have Barbossa, who's basically the antithesis of that. He's just a complete trash can.
Yeah. He's Captain Jack if he wasn't like charismatic.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was the effects. I was surprised in how well those held up, like the skeletons especially. I was like, wow, that actually did look pretty good, huh? I mean, it wasn't the best, but I was like, all things considered, I was actually probably really hard to do, and they're really pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, especially with the effects. It's not in the first movie because, like we said, we watched the first movie this time. But for the other two, they introduced Davy Jones.
Yeah.
And he, I think, is still widely considered the best CGI character in like all of movies.
Yeah.
Like he just looks the best.
Gollum might be better.
Oh yeah, never mind. Gollum might actually
one of the best.
One of the best, yeah.
Sure.
Because I mean, who knows? We might talk about one of the future ones in a minute, but a little bit about Davy Jones, even though it wasn't even in this movie. That's also a really good character. But back to Curse of the Black Pearl, the first one.
Yes.
The other main characters, besides Jack Sparrow, Elizabeth Swann and Will Turner.
Yeah.
Will Turner, I really liked his character, but whenever I see him, I just think Legolas, and I can't get that out of my head. But it's not Orlando Bloom's fault. He kind of got typecast, but he still did a really good job as Will Turner.
He was a good character, I think. He definitely added a bit more balance because Captain Jack Sparrow was like this free-spirited person that was like, he'll do it either way. And Will Turner was like really strong morals in a way, I guess, because he's like all about saving people. It's like all this. He wants to like have his father. He wants his father to be honorable. He didn't want to hear that he was a pirate because that's a bad thing.
Yeah, Will Turner was like a very naive character,
Yeah.
but then like throughout the story, throughout like all the movies, he starts to like learn that not everything is black and white, and it's kind of like Will Turner is like the audience's like little guide because we start out fresh to the series. So does he. He just starts out as this little blacksmith, and then we kind of follow him. And then I also thought it was funny how Captain Jack's first introduction to both of these characters, Elizabeth and Will, he fought Will in a sword fight, and then he threatened Elizabeth's life.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they all become friends. I just thought it was kind of funny.
It shows like the absolute growth in all their characters because it goes from Elizabeth Swann. I mean, Elizabeth Swann's sort of the same from the beginning and end, but she's more open-minded, I guess.
Yeah.
But Will Turner goes from being like a noble, naive, like super goody two-shoes sort of guy to now he's a pirate at the end of the movie. He admits that and he's willing to sacrifice his life for it. And then Jack Sparrow goes from being bad person to a less bad person.
Yeah, it's a little bit of growth, but he's really out there to be like the driving force, I guess, because it's
sort of like the comic relief, but like really good comic.
Yeah, it's like really. I mean, he's actually got an interesting story too. I mean, he really does. I looked back and like, wow, they really set up the entire series here.
Yeah.
If you look back on it, it's like all of it is because I obviously watched all the movies when I rewatched them, and they set up everything. Everything was in that first movie, and I was like, wow, that's. Because he had a very in-depth character. I thought that was really good because not only was he a good character, but he just had a lot underneath that you wanted to learn. And of course, they explored that in the later movies. But yeah.
It's funny because as a kid, like I never really paid attention to the plot. I was like, cool pirates, funny jokes, great, awesome. And then now, like it's been a while since I've watched it, so I come back and I watch it and I see the plot and I'm like, wow, this is actually a legitimately good movie.
Yeah.
But still, haha, funny pirate.
And good fights. Yeah, it's like that was my sort of takeaway. When I first saw it, I was just like, when I was a kid, obviously, I was just like, oh, cool sword fight scenes. But then after I saw it like a few years back, I was like, this is actually a genuinely good story, like a good movie.
Definitely deserves like the amount of respect it gets. It's like a good movie. Like I rewatched it and I was like, wow, that's actually much better than I remembered myself as a kid. Because like I was like, oh shit, battles, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But. And I think it's kind of funny how the movie was created because it was originally a ride at Disneyland. It was the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and so to make that ride make sense, they made a movie around the ride.
Yeah.
And I give praise to everyone who made it, and I don't remember who made it, but they were able to make the weirdest of conditions to make a movie into an actually really good story, and we're talking about it today, so it obviously lingers still to this day.
Nearly 20 years later or something.
20? Oh yeah, it has been that long.
It's been a minute.
Dang.
But like, if we're, I don't really know what role Elizabeth plays in this movie, really. I mean, she kind of, the damsel, I guess?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like a play on the damsel sort of thing, because she's a damsel in distress, but she also helps people a lot. She's the one who's getting people out of situations a lot. So her character is mainly a plot device, like to get things moving forward, but they're still able to make her seem like an actual character, not just throw it in to help the movie out.
In the future movies, she does become like more of an independent kind of character rather than just like a plot device.
I also think the settings in all the movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean is also really interesting because it's like East India Trading Company 1800s Caribbean with like Tortuga when they showed that for a bit.
Yeah.
Like it's all these like really weird, like intense, violent places in a Disney movie, and they're still able to make it pretty violent. Like there's scenes of people getting hung and people and like skeletons being hung up on ships.
Yeah.
And it's like people were able to probably break through the rating boundaries in order to make a Disney movie that violent. Yeah. And I appreciate that because if they toned it down, it wouldn't have been as impactful.
Yeah, that's one thing I do remember writing down in my notes. I was like, this is way more violent than I remember. Like, dudes are just getting flintlocked in the head left and right. Will Turner, like, throws a hatchet into this guy's back, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't I remember it being this,
it's just
intense?
They got rid of, like, all the gore. It's just, they did the action, there's just no blood, really, which is fine. I mean, it's still got a ton of action-packed scenes that were really fun and cool, but nothing too out there.
They still got like the wacky Disney movie antics where they're like with like the seesaw and the donkey and the blacksmith fight. Like they still got the wackiness stuff to it, but they make it make sense because Jack Sparrow is a wacky character.
Yeah.
So it's like they still have the standard Disney formula, but then they also employ violence and then Jack Sparrow, and it makes it into a really good movie.
Yeah.
I think Jack Sparrow isn't the main character, but he's the central character, if that makes sense. The main character is Will.
Yeah, because like it's his father taking that kind of point of view, but Jack Sparrow is like the guy that
he was like the catalyst.
Yeah, like we're like the whole series
goes drunk around. Gandalf in this story. That's basically what he does.
And I was kind of like thinking this movie kind of like The Princess Bride almost. Like William's kind of like what's his name?
I forgot.
Inigo Montoya?
No, that's the Spanish guy.
That's what Jack Sparrow kind of be like, because he's kind of like that kind of more rough around the edges guy that goes in there and does stuff. But Yeah, I think sure people that seen the movie Princess Bride know what I'm talking about. The main character with the black mask. Yeah, he's kind of like William because he's like, I'm gonna go save my lady and go through this whole adventure, and then you have Inigo Montoya, kind of like Jack Sparrow, who's like a rough kind of guy that just wants to, you know, like right the people who have wronged him, because obviously the people on the Black Pearl caused a mutiny and threw him off and basically expected him to kill himself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then that also brings it back to the violence in Disney movie, because they're like, oh yeah, here's a gun, we're gonna leave you on an island.
Yeah, they heavily reference suicide. I was like,
they're like, oh, you'll be nice and maybe you'll kill Elizabeth instead of killing yourself, and so you'll have to starve to death. It's like, dang, that really came out of nowhere. But it's like, but I mean, I like how they're not afraid to do that, and I think that also makes the stakes higher, because you know that they're not afraid to make violent things happen, and I think that also helps with Barbossa as a villain. Because he's actually scary, now that you know that he can actually do things to you and they're not bound by movie ratings.
Like Disney.
And then, and I think the one scene that really shows, like, Barbossa as a really cool villain is that one where they first take Elizabeth onto the boat.
Oh,
and it's like the
ghost
stories.
Song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, you best be believing in ghost stories, because you're in one. That part is really cool. And that actually still sends chills down my spine.
Like, give me a big, like, Disney movie, like the Disney park ride.
Yeah.
I was like, I've definitely been on this ride before.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no. As you said that, I honestly got a little bit. I was like, ooh, goosebumps. Forgot about that part.
Yeah.
But we talked about it earlier in the video already. We talked about how like there's so many just little details that just like come back into your head when you watch this. Like just tiny things like in the prison, there's the dudes like calling the dogs. One, that's from the ride. Two, it's just like a funny moment that you remember. The two British guards, they're hilarious. They show up in like every movie, just like completely incompetent.
And then the two pirates.
The two
pirates.
It's like the two sides of the battle kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're both kind of moronic.
The two bumbling idiots on each side.
You know, like it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because Jack Sparrow's the central comedic relief, like we said earlier, but they still have those like funny side characters. Because like even what was the Commodore's name? I forgot his name.
I wrote it down. It's
like I forgot his name.
We'll get there.
Yeah, when you put it up, he even does like some things that end up being funny, like unintentionally. Like the whole when it leads to the scene at the beginning where Jack Sparrow's like, "You'll remember this day, the day you almost captured Jack Sparrow," and like so the Commodore guy, which I don't remember his name again.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fine. He brings people into those sort of situations because he's like the stern guy, and you can't have a stern guy in a Disney movie. You got to make it funny afterwards, so you know that whenever he's there, something's gonna happen that makes it a lighthearted scene.
It was funny because like they just built like a lot of comedic moments around him. Like I wrote down one quote that was funny to me. He goes, "You've got to be the worst pirate I've ever heard of." And then Jack's like, "Oh, but you've heard of me." Like 10 minutes later, the Commodore's little right-hand man goes, "That's the best pirate I've ever seen." And then he's like, "So it would seem." And it's just funny because
that's another one of those famous moments we were saying at the beginning. Like there's so many famous moments because that's become a meme and it's become a famous line.
It's just so much. It's full of like pop culture in that movie. There's so much in there. I was like, wow. I think I've seen every single that scene in a meme somewhere. Any picture or reference. It's like it's crazy.
Like all those memes with all the rafts stacked up, and it's like, oh, it must be the best pirate I've ever seen. Like those are the type of things that make you really respect that movie, even though it doesn't relate to the movie itself. It's got such an impact that even off the screen, like it's just a simple Disney pirate movie, and like if you think about it, but then like it's got so much more impact past that. So like it's able to break through the purgatory that a lot of movies find themselves in, and it stays relevant years after it comes out.
After it came out.
It's really amazing to see because it's like it started off, as you said, it started off as like literally an amusement park ride, and then it goes to a movie, and it's like the movie could be good or bad, and now it's left like a huge legacy. They're still probably pumping out movies. I don't know. They're on like number 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And it's just left a huge legacy throughout pretty much every type of pop culture.
Yeah. They're doing that again with another Disney ride. They're making a Jungle Cruise movie about the Jungle Cruise ride. I don't know if it's going to be as successful as Pirates of the Caribbean because one, there's no Johnny Depp and it's Dwayne Johnson instead. But also Pirates of the Caribbean had such a unique, like I said earlier, the unique setting, the unique storylines. The pirate essence is something that was popularized by Pirates of the Caribbean. So before it really there wasn't really any media that showed that.
Yeah.
Like there's like that one show Black Sails. I've never seen it, but heard it's pretty popular. And games like Sea of Thieves and all these things are sparking after Pirates of the Caribbean came out. So like this is what really jump started the idea of like pirates in pop culture.
Yeah, like obviously there's pirate media before that, but like this was like the spark for just like it was a huge explosion of just like insane, just awesome pirates.
Yeah, because I for sure remember when I was a kid, like when I saw this movie for the first time, like the series, it was like I totally was all about that. I would go to the Disney store and get like all the Pirates of the Caribbean related gear and stuff. I still have the toys from that, like way back when I was like 5. Like it started this whole thing. I remember like at least 2 years where it was all Pirates of the Caribbean. Like it was crazy. I think I have a poster too from the 3rd movie.
Oh yeah, I remember like 5 years ago I was at your house and I found this like giant sword in your closet.
Jack Sparrow's
Yeah,
sword.
yeah. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's the same with this hat. I got that at Disneyland at the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Yeah. It's like even though it's merchandising and profiting on people, it's fun to be involved in it, and it's like the movies make it fun, and the movies are so much fun to watch.
I will say though, that I think all the movies after it, except the most recent one, were all good movies. I wasn't able to because I don't have the Blackbeard one on Disney Plus yet, but I watched.
Oh yeah,
Indiana
at Tides
Jones
End.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were really good movies.
At World's End,
number
on Stranger Tides, is the 4th one. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones with David Jones were really good too, and I was like, wow, actually some really good movies every single time, and I was really surprised by that. Except the most recent one, of course, because it was more just like, oh, we need to make money. Well, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
Going back to the merchandise thing, it just reminded me. Last night when I was watching the movie, I was like, I remember that scene from the Lego game. I remember that scene from the Lego game. And it's just funny because it's just like such a memorable part of my childhood. Like the Lego game left just as big as an impact as the actual movie itself.
It's sort of similar with me when I was watching through it. What's the name of that fort that got attacked by the Black Pearl at the beginning?
Port Royal.
Port Royal, yeah, that's what it's called. I remember in Disney Infinity. What's that game? Yeah, Disney Infinity, like with the Skylander sort of toys. That was one of the scenes you played through, and I used to have Disney Infinity, and that I remember that scene viscerally. And so when I watched that, it reminded me of that. So it's like it's not the Lego game because I didn't play Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's the same similar thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like. I don't know where I was going with that, but it was just a fun callback thing to come back to my mind.
Yeah, it was just like a constant memory of childhood, like good times. You know, I was just like, it was just all coming back, and I was like, this is so cool because I was like, it's not often you get to relive a childhood, like a very prominent part of my childhood. Like, of course, I had Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, but I didn't really think Pirates of the Caribbean was also a big part of that too, because I watched that all the time as well. Because it was something that was always on. I was like, oh, that's Pirates. I want to watch that. Because it was something that's like, oh, I see that. It's like, oh, that's a good movie. I know that, and it's fun, so I'm going to go watch that. It's one of those kind of movies, which I don't really think about often. But rewatching and actually looking into it made me realize how big it was for me as a young person and growing up and developing my tastes for everything, whether it be books or movies or games, whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, like an insight kind of onto it.
Yeah, like what you're saying with that, that's what I sort of thought too. It's sort of like a hidden legacy. Like it's such a big part of like my childhood too. I didn't watch it as much, but I definitely watched them as a kid, and then I watched them again later on. But then when I go back to look at the things that I remember fondly from my childhood, I remember like Pokemon and like Lord of the Rings. And Pirates of the Caribbean just slips over my head all the time. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But then going back and rewatching it really gives it the credit it deserves because it's very foundational in like my childhood, your childhood, I guess, and AJ's too.
Yeah.
And it hopefully these new movies get better, so it is for future kids. But I mean, they could always watch the original ones. But it's like that hidden legicy really needs to get more limelight because these are really good.
And that's an interesting fact because I feel like everybody has seen, like not everybody has seen Lord of the Rings, and not everybody has seen, of course, a ton of people have seen Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, but I feel like everybody has seen Pirates of the Caribbean just because of it's a Disney movie, and it was like, it's just...
It's nothing
There's no books previous to it.
Yeah,
there was no like 70s
watch.
movies, you know. It was just like, it was there. Let's go see this. It was on the Disney Channel all the time when I was younger. So it was kind of like, it's weird because I feel like everybody has seen the movie. Everybody knows Jack Sparrow. Everybody knows all these characters. Even though they don't know the name, they're like, oh, I know that guy. He's from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting that it also constantly goes over people's heads as like a really big part of just pop culture in general.
Yeah, it's really digestible. So it's like with other giant franchises, it's like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. You really got to get into the nitty gritty to fully delve yourself in that world. But with this movie, it's like simple but in a good way. Like you can just go and you can watch all of them and be like, wow, that was a really good story, and you go out knowing everything. There's no like giant deep lore you need to get into to feel like you're not missing out. It's just a really nice, approachable, digestible franchise, and I think that's why a lot of people think of it very fondly.
Yeah.
But it also might be why a lot of people don't remember it, because though it's really good, it doesn't have much substance outside of the movies. So like you watch the movies and then it's done. So it sort of works as a benefit and a detriment.
Yeah, a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's definitely a franchise with a legacy, but maybe not as high as other franchises for that reason.
Yeah, because there's no like books that you can really read. Like, because of course Star Wars has hundreds, not just several hundred books you can read outside the movies, and they have all these games, and they have all this just built up lore that's crazy. And same with Lord of the Rings, but Press Camera doesn't have that, but it's just much more linear as far as the entire thing goes. You watch those movies, you know basically everything about it.
I think for me, one major thing that I remembered watching through it again is just how cool pirates are.
Yeah,
it's like
a cool thing. Yeah.
It's like it's a setting. It's a medium. Well, not really a medium. It's more of a setting, not a medium. That like the pirate world. It's like it should be like a western. Like westerns have tons of movies. There's tons of things in that world. It's not the same for like pirates, and I think it deserves to be just as much because it's such a deep setting that has so many opportunities.
It's a historically based setting that isn't entirely historic. It's not historical at all.
Because there's like magical stuff that happens.
Yeah, but it's just it's based around a historical kind of idea, but it's just they completely built off it and made it this really awesome thing. And because like for westerns, people are like, oh, the sheriff, the cowboy, like this kind of like gunslinger kind of guy. It's a really cool character, right? Yeah. I feel like pirate stuff need to be up there too, because I feel like every kid that watches the pirate movies like that's super cool. Because how would you not see like ship battles and like boarding ships and all that? Not cool,
Yeah.
But
one note that I had in my notes section, ready? I can't believe we missed this, but the music, it slaps.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like even obviously the main theme is very iconic. Every time I hear it, it's like, oh, we're getting into it now.
Yeah. I realized, I was like, I have literally heard this theme song because it never gets old.
Even just like the background music and like the less popular tracks are like, that's really just like ingrained in my brain. I'm like, I heard that from so many different places, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I literally made a note of that as I was watching. I was like, I need to bring up the music because this is awesome. And then I don't know why it slipped over my head. Like, there's obviously the main theme, but then all the other like minor scores,
little tidbits here.
Little tidbits. They're not as popular because they're not as catchy, but they still really help you get into that world. Yeah. And it's like,
it's funny because every time I see the Thieves, I always hum the main thing like dun 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 dun. Yeah. It's so funny because it's one of those things I don't think about. I'm like, oh, overshot your ship, so let's go and hum this.
I'd say the soundtrack is definitely up there among Star Wars, among Harry Potter, all of the really iconic movie soundtracks. It's definitely top 3 for me.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably, this might be a hot take. It might, in my opinion, be like the most iconic movie soundtrack, like in America at least.
Yeah.
Because like I know like Harry Potter is probably more prevalent in the UK or things like that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But like I feel like when you think of ones like maybe not the entire soundtrack, but the one Pirates of the Caribbean theme song.
Because if you think about like the Star Wars one, a lot of people know, but like it's more of like a couple generations ago. Right?
It's more of a fan
huge,
thing.
Obviously there's tons of fans still now, but just considering like if we talk about like our generation, I feel like 90% of our generation has seen Pirates of the Caribbean, which maybe like 6 years. I'd say 70% have seen Star Wars. So I just feel like more people are like, oh, that's Pirates of the Caribbean. Like,
the funny thing about that, like being like ingrained in our generation, you hear the Pirates of the Caribbean theme in like a ton of memes. Like there's a ton of memes based on it. It's just like, it's very, I think Pirates of the Caribbean might be, if not the biggest, it's like top 3 biggest franchises of our generation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because like what I was saying earlier with like the Pirates of the Caribbean main song being the most iconic movie song probably, is like if you say Star Wars, there's not like one song that you think about. Like
there's some bangers too.
There's some bangers, but there's not like, when you think of Star Wars, you don't immediately think like, oh, Duel of Fates is the one song that's really good in Star Wars. There's like tons. Yeah. And like with Harry Potter, there's the Harry Potter theme, but like, it's not as popular in the US.
To be honest with you, I couldn't even really hum it in my head.
Yeah.
Right now. Like I don't know. I've seen all the Harry Potter movies. I just can't think in my head because it's just not as prevalent. Like, because you know it's there, and if I watch it, I'm like, oh, I remember that. But like, just Pirates of the Caribbean, the theme song's always in my head. I don't know why. It's just, it's always there. I always know exactly what it is.
Rent free up in here.
Reserved spot in the brain for the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack.
It's funny because I mean, Lord of the Rings also has a great soundtrack, but like, there's no one song again. Same thing with Star Wars. There's no one song. Because I'm gonna do the intro for Star Wars, but I mean,
yeah, but I think there's a lot of songs in Star Wars better than that song.
Yeah, there's tons.
Yeah.
Better.
And so like, even though that probably might be the most famous song, it is pouring outside. Hopefully it doesn't pick up that much, but like in Star Wars there's not that one song, but in Pirates of the Caribbean there is, and so that one song encapsulates the entire franchise. So that's why it is just probably like the best movie song. Like, even though they probably didn't mean to make the best movie song, they just ended up doing it because it's the entire franchise in like 1 3-minute just epic instrumental.
Yeah, whenever you hear that, you just get flashbacks to Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like,
whoa,
dang.
Was that thunder?
Yeah.
Dang.
The seas are brewing.
The seas are. We got some rough waves outside.
The rough winds.
Winds
are changing.
I guess it's nature's fate to say that we should probably end it because this might get pretty loud in the background. But yeah, so like any final like last thing you want to say right before we end it off?
Good movie.
Good movie.
Good movie. Thanks for watching. If we're probably gonna make another one once every week or every other week, like I said in the last episode. In the comments, if you have an idea for a movie, put one down and we'll probably do it because no one's gonna comment. So if you do, we'll probably do it. And so yeah, hope you liked it. Stay tuned for the next one. Sweet. Now watch the phone turned off.
Yeah, I turned off 10 minutes.